So we start by imminent 2025. It's the question, it's quite simple, as you see from the title. We were convinced that there were too many revolutions. AI is not a revolution. It's much more than a revolution. Revolutions were imminent, were internet, the web, it was social media, it was video media. Revolution, an inflation of revolutions. The big thing, it's not a revolution, it's evolution. Evolution, there is only one evolution. If we understand evolution, we understand the big thing. And we are convinced that AI is mostly about evolution. Evolution means that humans adapt and change the environment, adapt to the environment and change the environment by creating technology, by changing their cultural attitudes, by mutations that are not only biological, they are technocultural. And language is a part of this. It's a very important part of our cultural and technical ability to adapt to the environment and to change the environment. So what happens to language? Language changes. Language is, we lose languages, we create new languages, and with AI, we have the possibility to make a lot of changes. For example, everybody that understands everybody else in any language. What's going to happen to human evolution with that? What's going to happen? What kind of thing is going to come to us after that this wave of incredible changes is happened? What kind of society we have beyond AI, beyond the wave, beyond the change that we are living in? And so we asked quite a few people to help us, because we don't know nothing. I'm a journalist. We just ask questions. And we had very important insights. We had Victor Meyer-Schönberger, we had Dennis E. Tennen from Columbia, Schönberger from Oxford, Gry Hasselbach from Copenhagen, Yannis Karlinikos here in Rome. We have here some of our researchers that helped us answer the questions that I mentioned. Patrizia Boglione, please come up. She's brand and creative VP at Translated, and we have Kirti Vashi, tech evangelist here in Translated. We had the help from quite a few researchers and professionals of language. We found something. For example, we found that our brains change. And that has been explained to us by neuroscientists. We have a video from one of them, Martina Arditzi. She is from University of Parma. She helped us understand that there is a co-evolution between us and technology.
Hello, everyone. I'm Martina Arditzi. I'm a neuroscientist at the University of Parma here in Italy. And I have a question for you. Probably it sounds quite rhetoric. But by the way, have you ever heard about the term brain rot? It has been floating around a lot, especially with all the talk about the endless scrolling and short online videos consumed. And also because the Oxford University Press named it as the word of the year in 2024. We speak a lot about this word because actually it paints this picture of our brain turning into a sort of mush from all the low quality content we consume online. This topic raised again recently because of the MIT paper that for sure you know, which gained a lot of attention because its results were interpreted in the media as suggesting a sort of reduction in brain activity if you use LLM to write an essay. But as the author wrote in the paper, in the discussion session, their results cannot confirm this kind of interpretation. First of all, because they cannot measure the brain activity, so they are not measuring the brain rot destiny of our era. So here's the thing. As a neuroscientist, what I wanted to really do is explore the bigger picture of what neuroscience can actually tell us about our current digital era. Are we actually facing a cognitive crisis, or is our brain just adapting in incredibly and complex ways? We don't have a proper answer, and I cannot answer in 3 minutes for sure, but what can I do is add some puzzle or some pieces to this big puzzle. The first pieces is, let's remember that our brain have always been evolving alongside technology. Think about language. We didn't just wake up one day speaking. The tool we used in the past, like early implements, actually shaped our brain and helped the language development. Our minds aren't fixed. They are constantly changing with the tech we create. And this claim were true for the past, the present, and for sure also for the future. Second piece is our brain are incredibly plastic, like, I don't know, super adaptable. Remember those London taxi drivers who develop larger brain regions, namely the hippocampus, because of all the navigating they did. They were studied by Milgram in the 70s, and nowadays they are capital study in neuroplasticity. Our brain are always rewiring based on our environment and what we learn. So now, with the current digital landscape, our brains are definitively interacting with these new tools, probably in new ways. And this is the crucial part. We don't necessarily know if these changing are causing something bad, like the brain rot, or they are just a sort of adaptation. And sometimes the very trait that make us susceptible to certain bad online habits might be already there. So my main point is, while it's smart and super wise to be mindful on how much time we spend online, on the quality of our digital environment, that's for sure a very good habit, digital habit probably, but the narrative of the brain rot might be missing the bigger picture. Our brains are designed to adapt. Whether these changes turn out to be detrimental or just new adaptation or new ways of processing information remain to be seen, even from the neuroscientific point of view. So instead of judging, let's focus on understanding how incredibly adaptable our brains really are to this new digital frontier, and use this information to create a powerful adaptation for ourselves and our brain too. Thank you.
Yeah. Now that's because it's out there, as you may have noticed, there is a lot of worries about the consequences of the digital age in terms of how our brains work, and if they actually are able to stay working with the information overload, the kind of media that we use, and the possibility of using chats to answer any kind of question. These worries are, of course, legitimate, but Martina tells us that there is more to that. We are evolving with this kind of technologies. We change, and not necessarily for the worse, but we need to be open to what happens, and to create a sort of environment in which our research can lead us to find the right way to use these technologies. For example, the fact that we live in the digital environment with all these changes has created also a sort of word for the younger generation that develop new language, new ways to think, new ways to connect. Patrizia Boglione has done an original research about that. How is, what's happening in the younger generation environment in terms of new languages, new words, new ways to connect?
That's very difficult. Anyway, I will try to keep in my hand this. I'm old enough to have been 40 years in advertising industry. And when I was young, in the 90s, I was I worked in McCann Erickson, which is a big advertising company. So I went around the world to make talks about the impact of advertising on kids. So I always studied that. And I met a guy while we were both doing a talk in Rio de Janeiro that wrote a book, his name was Johnson, surname was Johnson, that he just said, imagine parents if books were invented later than internet. So you see these two parents chatting. Oh, have you seen our child? He's sitting on a bed with these strange things in his hands, and he's just stick to it, and he's going to die. Okay? What was happening? That in books, kids sparked their imagination. Okay? Another thing. My son, now is 30, he was selling pajamas on a video game when he was 7 and 8. But when he went to the university, he said, I will be an engineer, a managing engineer, because I learned while selling pajamas in my video games what processes is and what processes are. So we cannot blame if kids do something that we don't want to do or we don't know how to do. Kids, they're just adapting their lives to what's changing. So here we are speaking about physical AI. Okay, Generation Alpha is digital native. The Generation Beta, that started to be born now, it will be AI native. Their kids, Generation Delta and Gamma, will be at least physical AI native. So everything will change, also in terms of languages. So what we did here, we just deep dive in languages, just starting from Generation Alpha. Even if I am a brand strategist also, it has no sense for branding to address consumers in terms of generations, because if you, brands just prefer dividing consumers in elective targets, so the people that have attitude to things, no? And nevertheless, there is something very simple. These children will survive us. So we have to do generation. We have to speak about generation. So the Generation Alpha started in 2010. They nearly stay 15 years. And at the end of the year, they will be all born and will be 2.8 billions. They are all in Asia. Okay? So whatever we think, the future is there, okay? This means that in 2035, the middle class of all world population will be in Asia. So if you are a brand, you have to think about what you are selling and to whom you are selling that. And this Generation Alpha, they don't, we say they use poor language. No, they don't use poor language. They use language that is made from neologisms coming from TikTok, mixed with Minecraft. You know, they live in Minecraft, they live in video games, they have a lot of activity there. There are financial forum in Slack, and they are all 20 years old. So everything is changing, and maybe we don't understand. Even we don't understand because, for example, Luca sent me an article saying that bullism, we cannot get sense of bullism now with this generation because they use strange emoji just to bully people, and we don't understand them. So language for them is a living system. So this will allow translated to survive, because language changes every day. And changing every day, we will need the humans to edit and to understand and to follow what machine cannot yet learn. On the other hand, what is interesting is also that if Western people invent language in English, a lot of other cultures, and this is the work that Elisa Corsi, our anthropologist there, she did in Asia and in Africa, they still invent language, neologism, mixing English and mixing local culture. And so this is the research we will find in Imminent. And if these people is inventing new languages, is not linear, is not made of words, but is made of images sensing and things crossing and is spoken maybe in Minecraft, what will happen when the next generation will be born with only a machine that senses everything? So will be language a matter of tongue, or will be language a matter of other things? We find out in the next number.
Thanks a lot. So there is a lot of complexity that we are finding, and we just give you the possibility to look at it in terms of these short demonstrations of what you can find in Imminent issue. Evolution, environment, how we adapt, how we mutate. One of the things that I've learned all the time while listening to professors and researchers about the quality of an ecosystem is that a sane, a healthy ecosystem is diverse. There is biodiversity. There are many kinds of life. This is also true in our cultural environment. If there is diversity, then there is health. If there is just one thought, that is not sane. So one of the things that make our humanity diverse is to have diverse languages and diverse cultures. But the fact is that we are living in a place and in an age in which some of these languages, a lot of them, are not well documented as the others, and this makes them in danger to be lost or to be forgotten in a place where only some of these languages will go into the models and be preserved in an AI age. So what can we do? How can we think about that? That's the job of Kirti Valshi.
I'm more tired than Patricia, so I'm going to sit and do my talk here. So what I wanted to talk about was how digital access is directly linked to economic opportunity. And what you see today in the world, with access to information, is that those that speak the dominant languages have the greatest economic opportunities. And there have been studies to show that English speakers have generally earned 11 times what people in the lowest 3 billion earn. So that there is a direct relationship to digital access and opportunity. And this disparity is something that UNESCO is attempting to bring people together to try and address. And they have a conference every few years. The first one in 4 years that I attended, a conference called Language Technology for All, where they are initiating a decade-long process to collect information across as many languages as possible. They use the number 7,000, but given that we today have 100 or 200 languages that are NLP capable or that have some sort of digital footprint that can meaningfully play in LLMs or machine translation. 7,000 is a very ambitious number, and honestly, I don't think they're going to, get that. But if they add a few hundred more, that will still be a very significant accomplishment. So basically, when you're looking at low resource languages, which is something that people in machine translation have been looking at for a while to see how do we expand language coverage, not just in terms of economic opportunity to sell them stuff, but also in terms of learning from cultures that may have different views of the world and give you a more diverse and more organic perspective on, the human culture at the grossest level. And so there were several people that were talking about how this can be done. And for many of the indigenous languages, the language is very closely linked to value as a human, value as a human in relation to nature. So that character has to also be honored and respected as you build a digital footprint for these languages. So this was sort of the kind of discussion that was going on at the L2-4-All conference. And it starts with community collaboration. And since you can't just build, like English has the ability to go into 200 languages currently in machine translation. If you're building something in Maori, or if you're building something in some Mayan language, if you're lucky, you'll be able to go into 5 or 10 languages that matter for that region. So first of all, you have to work together with the community to target what is possible. So when you build a Mayan language machine translation system, it all begins with work around Spanish. When you're building a Maori system, it does begin with English because they have a colonial legacy, but there's several issues they have. There's not enough compute to experiment and play and build systems. There's not enough data. And this is a big issue that all these diverse languages have to address in some way or the other. So it all begins with community collaboration, identifying what matters and building corpus around that. So there is some sort of a targeted data collection effort that is very collaborative between the technical people that build the systems and the communities that are going to benefit most from the systems. And some of them, it's a very novel view and way of building momentum in these languages that have been forgotten digitally. And it may involve games that children play and learn ancestral stories. It can involve a collection of just voice prints by showing people a series of pictures and asking them to describe, what do you see here? Can you describe it in your language? And collecting this information, and there's several initiatives around the world that are attempting to do that. And in the machine translation area, which is a critical element of success here, you have to use technological innovation to build and expand the range of languages that are possible. So a lot of it, there's not a lot of bilingual text available. Some of that will have to be created, but there's also a need for other kinds of learning that you have to do because you don't have the bilingual text. So learning from monolingual data, from back translation, from using some of the capabilities of LLM technology to self-supervised learning. So these are all initiatives that are being investigated and are being experimented with in Africa, in South Asia, in parts of Latin America where native indigenous tribes live. And then once you get some of a basic system in place, you deploy it and you continue to improve and refine and make sure that the communities that access this information have a say in the whole thing. There's a very strong sentiment that I noticed at this conference, that they are very suspicious of the big American tech. Google and Meta and Microsoft are seen with, they have a very wary eye on them because there's a sense that they come to take and they give very little back. That the intention is to be able to sell products to them, but there's no real interest in preserving the culture. So there also needs to be a different kind of mindset when you approach these languages. But anyway, the article I wrote was a summary of the discussion there and some of the technological and cultural issues that are raised by this, and the ethical issues, like how do we give ownership? Like the Maoris refuse to let Google use their data to build an MT system, because they said you don't respect the culture and you will bastardize it, and we don't want to be part of it. And we will do it on our own, or we will not do it. And so they're trying to do it on their own. So that's some of the issues that I describe in this article here.
Right, so every year we give out, translated Imminent gives out 5 grants essentially as gifts for free research. So that means research that is sort of expansive, wide-reaching, that opens the horizons of what we do. We have 5 topics we are subdividing the grants into 5 topics. So we're giving out 100,000 euros every year divided in 5 topics. That's 20,000 per grant. And we're giving them out to researchers around the globe who apply with their projects. We have a yearly cycle. So there's a current cycle open that will finish end of this year, beginning of next year. And today, I guess we're going to be announcing the winners for this cycle here. I think we have slides, right? We have a video even. Okay, let's go for the video then.
Hi, I'm Philip Akoda, founder and CEO of Mkanda, formerly the African Languages Project. I'm also a lexicographer based in Lagos, Nigeria, and an author of several published literary works focused on African languages and history. We work with universities and linguists to build comprehensive dictionaries and linguistic datasets to preserve and revitalize African languages. For millions of people, our tools bring African languages into digital spaces where they've long been excluded. Despite global relevance, as with Yoruba, which is widely spoken, taught abroad, and featured in media, they also support global users who've lacked resources to teach, study, or build with these languages. The grant will allow us to build Africa's first multilingual dictionary app, starting with Yoruba, Efik, and Hausa. It will allow us to launch public APIs that provide open access to our growing lexicographic datasets to allow researchers and developers build and integrate African languages into today's digital products, platforms, and technologies. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barbara Blank, and I'm a professor in natural language processing at LMU Munich. It's quite good. A simple phrase, but people might understand it very differently and for different reasons. For some, it means good. For others, it means not really that good. Today's AI systems miss these nuanced differences in interpretation. By closing this gap, we can build language models that understand people, across languages and cultures. Our project focuses on natural language inference. We will build a new type of dataset that does not only record what answers someone gave, but also for what reasons. By collecting such data, we can better understand human reasoning and how it varies across languages and cultures. At the same time, it is natural that humans make mistakes. By collecting valid and verified data, we account for human errors. This, in turn, allows us to separate error from plausible variation, which will lead to more trustworthy and reliable AI systems for everyone. Thanks to the Imminent grant, we can make an important step to realize this vision. Our dataset will be key to evaluate the language and reasoning capabilities of large language models. Doing so will help close the gap between today's AI systems and the rich and diverse ways humans understand language, and that's quite good.
Hi, I'm Simran Khanuja. I'm a graduate student at Carnegie Mellon, and we're based in Pittsburgh in the United States. So my research is about extending machine translation systems to the visual world. So what I mean by this is, say a chocolate brand creates an advertisement in the US, they might advertise it with Christmas, but if they want to extend it or localize it to, say, India, they might need to advertise it with Diwali or Holi and festivals relevant there. So we are looking at whether we can use machine learning or generative AI systems to do this. And this stands to benefit not just ads, but also children's education, where making something culturally relevant is very important. And also maybe TV adaptations or movie adaptations for different countries. So we've built a platform for human AI collaboration where translators can upload images and enter simple text instructions on how they want to localize an image. And we run multiple state-of-the-art diffusion models at the back end, show them these outputs, and they can select what they like. And our platform has been very effective in translating images at a smaller scale. So using the Imminent grant, we want to extend this, we want to scale this and bring it to translators across the globe so that they can localize images for their region.
Hello, I am Francesca Ferroni, postdoctoral researcher at the Unit of Neuroscience of the University of Parma.
Hi everyone, I'm Stefana Garello, a philosopher of language currently based at the University of Roma 3.
The aim of the present project is to investigate the causal role of sensory motor areas, such as, for example, the inferior frontal gyrus, that we found previously implicated in our previous studies in L1, also in L2 comprehension. And we will use TMS fMRI, so a transcranial magnetic stimulation combined with functional magnetic resonance imaging. And these advanced techniques allow us to perturb and measure entire brain networks, providing direct proof of engagement of specific brain targets. Regarding the impact of our project, our findings can inspire new educational practices and support the development of more embodied artificial intelligence language tutors.
The Imminent grant is vital for advancing our project by enabling an innovative TMS fMRI protocol to uncover causal links in a second language processing. It will support a cutting-edge setup, consolidating the Neuroimaging Center at the University of Parma and the Cosmic Lab at the University of Roma 3, and it will foster interdisciplinary collaboration.
Hello, my name is Mirko Ravanelli. I am an assistant professor at Concordia University in Montreal and an associate member of Milan. My research focuses on deep learning for conversational AI, with a particular focus on speech processing. Together with my collaborators, we are trying to make this technology not only better, safer, more efficient, but also democratizing conversational AI and making it available to everybody. That's why I started the SpeechBrain project, which is now one of the most popular open source toolkits for speech processing. The Imminent grant will help us speeding up substantially the development of the next major version of SpeechBrain, where we plan to develop new technologies, new state-of-the-art technologies for speech-language modeling, multimodal language modeling, audio tokenizations, and much more. And we will do that in the SpeechBrain style, where we try to take care of important aspects such as replicability, transparency, and also good documentation.
It's great. I'm really happy, and these guys will be starting their work now. In the 12 months to come, they'll be working on these projects. We're going to hear from them. I guess we're going to have feedback from them, or news from them as they work in next year's imminent issue. We've selected them because mainly, what they do, we believe is consequential for the work we do at Translated, for multilinguality in general, localization, the things in the world that we're sensitive to. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Stay with us. Stay with us. Yeah, because this is the last part of this first meeting of DUBS. So we are now trying to wrap up and try to make a common perspective, or at least ask ourselves how to create a common perspective about the next 4 years in which we will work together. A common perspective is very useful if you work together. And we will do it with Sébastien, with Luisa Bentivogli from Fondazione Bruno Kessler, and Tania van Achteren at Vito in Belgium. But this is only for starting. If you have any suggestions during this last 20 minutes, you just use your wireless device and tell me that you want to tell something. Thank you. So let's start by Luisa. We just discussed what? We have a Marcos video that left us to improve our discussion about this subject. So Marco Trombetti, the CEO, Translated.
We're getting ready for a new edition of Imminent. We're just starting the work for the next edition of Imminent. We're very excited because we have an important year in front of us. Many things are changing. For the first time ever, we're hitting the limit of what large language models can do, and we have to invent new ways of making progress with artificial intelligence. Ingenuity is becoming an important factor for inventing this feature compared to brute force. And that is an exciting opportunity for everyone on the planet. Language is the most profound manifestation of human intelligence, is the most human thing we have. What made evolution for the human species possible? And we need really to solve this problem. We need to allow everyone to understand and be understood, because if we do this, we unlock the next phase of human evolution. We can unlock a future that looks way, way better through cooperation at global scale. How do we do that? In Imminent Report, we will talk a lot about what we're doing with DUBS, our research project that is trying to solve some of these problems. And these are well-known problems for us, things that we face every day as problems, but now we have the data, the computational resources to try to solve them. And let's mention one. I had a dubbing actor, a voice actor, an incredible actor that was working on a movie. And he was complaining that for privacy reason now you just receive a script. You can no longer see the movie, you just see a small portion of the screen. He was not able to act, he was not able to provide that experience to the user by just reading a text. He needs to watch the movie. He needs to see the face actor. He needs to hear the music, the ambience. We humans need, and also machine needs this. We need to provide machines more context. The visual context, the modalities, the senses that we humans have, and even more, so that they can actually try to solve this problem. But there is more. We need to provide machine new form of reasoning, more sophisticated form of reasoning. Because if today you ask a language model how to translate this simple sentence, they will always fail. 3 parole, non sei solo. And if you ask to translate this in English, it would be 3 words, you are not alone. No, these are 4 words and not 3. Transformers and language models today are not able to solve the problem. And even if you try to combine multiple agents to try to solve it, they just solve it by chance, not by truly understanding how to do it. And they're slow at doing it, sequentially, rather than parallel. We need to create this new architecture, way similar to the human brain, where we can use multiple parts of our brains in parallel, working together to try to solve more complex reasoning problem. And the last and more important thing we need to do is a new form of learning. You know, we humans, we learn by doing. Only a small portion of what we do is learning by reading past data. We do these things, and by doing things, we learn what to do and what not to do. And machines cannot do it now. So we need to allow machines to interact with the physical world and the digital world, try to do tasks, fail, and learn. And we need to create a new form, a new algo for allowing this to happen. If we solve this problem, then we can move artificial intelligence one step forward. And this is what we will be talking about in the imminent next report.
Yeah, thank you. Luisa, how do we put together a working common perspective? You need to keep these two together.
Common perspective from here to 4 years? 4 years. Well, you know, it's very difficult to say. We know that since we had the large language models, emerging abilities, and this evolution, fast evolution of technology, we are not able to really say what is going to happen. So in between, for example, our previous project, we are creating an agent that is going to go to meetings on behalf of us. So speaking for us and taking decisions for us. In DUPS, we are creating machines, models that are able to create other models. So there will be agents communicating across them without human intervention. So maybe they will also develop systems of values, moral values that will be different from us human, from what we can understand or which are our values. So it's difficult to say. And well, I'm old and I can say that I don't know where we will be in 4 years, but where I would like to be really with technology is to be able to go back to humans, to be able to speak the language of humans again, as we were talking about languages, because now, yes, the humans, we are creating user-facing applications for millions of people, of lay users, and we must center our technologies on them. So speaking about machine translation, for example, we have systems that are able to, let's say, estimate the quality of the translation, but we are not able to communicate it to users so that they can trust our machine translation system, so that they can understand what is going on. So really, it's old-fashioned, but it's a thing that is very important and crucial, and we will try to do it as much as possible also in DOOPS, ensure that humans are in the loop, ensure that the needs of the humans are taken into account, ensure that there are no harms to humans. And we will do it very seriously and taking into account many different stakeholders from the civil society, the general public lay users, to be sure, yes, that we go back to humans.
That's great, and let me tell you that the only thing I can teach you is about how to be older. So, this is great because it gives us two hints. Number one, a methodology to put together the ideas, and second, something that you imagine, something that you desire, because the future doesn't exist. There is no future. Nobody has seen the future. Nobody went there. But we have what we do, what we think, and the consequences of what we do and what we think. And that gives us a hint, because if we improve our way to think and improve the things that we do, then we get a better future. So I know that Tanya can help us imagine something that will happen in the next 4 years. She starts from, this is for you, okay. She starts from her experience, and then she develops the idea, the vision that she thinks we could use for working together.
Yes, thank you. When I started Earth observation, it's already almost 20 years ago. The reason why I started, I'm an engineer and I like technology, I like mathematics. Space is a very exciting environment to be active in. And most of all, I also liked the Earth observation imagery. It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful to look at Earth. And along came also the realization you need to preserve that beautiful planet. In 21, there were very big floodings in Belgium. It was after a very hot period like we are experiencing right now. And a lot of rain was coming, which we are not used to. So much rain in a short time that it was not able to be absorbed by Earth. So we lost some villages, we lost quite some people. But most of all, it was a big reality check for the work that we did until then. We had a lot of data, and we were involved in the first few days in the crisis management. They sent us images from drones, from satellites, from airplanes, and so on. But they were not aligned at all. They were not georeferenced. We didn't have an autonomous system to put all these information together. And most of all, emergency services didn't know where they had to go first. And it was a lot about missing technology to integrate all these information sources, but also a very important aspect was the human factor. There were very different instances, firefighters, crisis center people, police, and so on involved, but they didn't have a good way of sharing responsibilities, communicating with each other, because they didn't have the right information at the right time at that location. So when Sebastian asked me to be involved in this project, we were already working on foundation models. We really saw the opportunities there. I was really happily surprised with the real focus on adding application verticals and really being confident that we would be able to solve real-life use cases. And I think that's the power of this project. You have really all kinds of brains, fundamental intelligence that is sitting here, but at the same time we have real-life operators in the loop. And I think this is a very strong project, combining these two types of people and ideas and so on. So my hope is that by the end of these 4 years, we will have a system, or at least the first steps towards a system that integrates this kind of information sources in time of needs, in a very fast way. And also by combining, I've heard a lot about languages the last few days. It's not my domain of expertise, but it got me thinking and being inspired, because I was thinking just like, yeah, we prompt the image and then it gets text, and that we send to an emergency service person in the field. That's nice, but indeed there is the human factor. There is, it's nice to hear this kind of thoughts, and especially in a crisis situation, there are so many emotions. If there is a possibility to catch that, this stress from the people who are trying to help people and the people who need to be helped, that would be great. So that's what I hope, that by the end we have put some steps forward in that sense.
Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, and I really appreciate that we think about the future and the futures, the possible different kinds of future, and we choose the better future to help become true. Sebastian, what do you take about all this, and what kind of process will we use for creating and developing a common vision with this project?
We've got this amazing chance here. This is it's a strategic project for the European Union, for the European Commission. We're getting a lot of attention. We're getting an unusually large budget. We have an amazing roster of partners on the consortium to work on these topics. I think we've got this huge opportunity here to make an actual big difference here. So it's more than just a classical, collaborative research project. It's quite a bit more. We also know that there's going to be more means, more resources coming, for instance, in the form of compute infrastructure, which is one essential ingredient to build AI models, of course. We're getting all this traction, really. And this feels totally empowering, I find. So we've got all this. We've got the people together. We've got I would say, the roadmap together, the resources. We have, I would say, high ambitions. Many, like Tanya just said, many dreams out there that we're hoping to fulfill. Many good and strong ideas for how to get there. Obviously also many uncertainties and many doubts, concerns about, we don't know, we don't have the answers to many of the questions we need to solve on the way to actually, do these things. We have a plan that consists mostly of actually just asking questions and then trying to sit down and work out the answers. But we don't have the answers as of now. We're literally just building, the path as we walk it. And so my vision for this, I can't say where we'll land in 4 years from now. I don't think anybody can, in particular because, well, it's just not us in the world. The issues the world has to grapple with, they're changing. We've had COVID not very long ago. We are seeing, the effects of climate change, the consequences of that on the weather, on global economies and economics. The world around us is changing, and so obviously is the technical means we have. So there's so many actors now in AI with respect to when, for instance, when I started 25 years ago in the field, it was still a niche, okay? Now we've got so many talented people and so many resources behind it that also this makes a huge difference. So both these factors make it nearly impossible to decide or to predict what's going to be the, the state of affairs in 4 years. But what we do know for sure is that, for instance, the very central scientific questions we're working on in DOOPS, these are going to matter. So we know that building machines that have a deep awareness of context, machines that are able to perceive the reality, the physical reality around us in ways that have never been possible before, taking example on, taking advantage of what we know, of how we know humans work, where we know that this is going to be a good way of building these new pieces of technology. We also know that we're building this not just because we love to play with toys, but because we believe that the actual applications that we'll have in DOOPS, we'll have applications on geo-intelligence that Tanya was commenting on. We'll have applications in medicine, in cardiology specifically, and we'll have applications in language communication, and a couple of extra more domains that we will find out during the project, we will unveil during the project. So these will be the real impact, the real life impact of the work we'll be doing. And we know for sure, and this is how essentially when I decided how to put together the consortium, this is how I was thinking about the issues. We know for sure that perception through sensors, for algorithms, for machines, perception of the physical world, this is going to make these applications much better. So they're going to make the greater good is going to be delivered through these clever ideas that we're working on. This we know for sure, and that's the reason, and the main factor that gives us the trust to pursue this avenue.
Thank you, Sebastian. So now, if you want, you can tell us something about all this perspective building. If you want to tell us by mail, you can also. We are starting here, and we will come out with a new imminent issue as a contribution to the work that we are doing together to build a common vision. If you want to say something that is the moment, if you want to go away, I understand. What I know by talking to thousands of people, hundreds of young people, is that we are not in a moment, in a historic period in which the future from Europe, from Italy seems beautiful. They tell me they fear the future. They don't like the future. But we can deal with that, and we talk about that. My lessons are about looking at the future as a set of possibilities, and that is something that we already have here. We have a set of possibilities which is quite different than having a bad future. And second, they tell me, yes, I understand this. There are many possibilities. I can choose, I can do my part, but I'm alone. What's my impact? And this is another thing that we have here. We are not alone. We are together. And this is really the thing that makes the difference. So thank you for being here.